Picture this. You're a young woman in medieval Europe, and your options in life are basically get married or become a nun. That's it, those are your choices. Marriage means your father picks some man for you, probably someone decades older, possibly someone you've never met. You become his property, you bear his children until your body gives out, and you spend your life cooking and cleaning and hoping he's not too cruel. Or you can become a nun. Give your life to God. Live in a peaceful convent away from the violence and chaos of medieval life. Spend your days in prayer and contemplation. Sounds better, right? Except becoming a nun in medieval times wasn't the peaceful spiritual retreat you're imagining. It was its own kind of prison with its own set of horrors. And once you're in, which you are, you're in for life. There's no changing your mind, no going back. You've made a vow to God, and breaking that vow means eternal damnation. Most women didn't choose this freely. Your family chose it for you. Maybe you're a younger daughter and your father can't afford dowries for all his daughters, so he sends you to a convent instead. Maybe you're considered unmarriageable, too plain or too difficult, or you have some physical issue that makes you undesirable as a wife. Maybe your family wants to look pious and offering a daughter to the church earns them social points. Some convents required a dowry just like marriage did. Your family had to pay the convent to take you. So you're not escaping financial transaction, you're just being sold to the church instead of to a husband. You might be sent to the convent as young as 7 or 8 years old, a child who has no concept of what she's agreeing to. You're raised by nuns, taught to pray and read Latin, and do whatever work the convent specializes in. By the time you're old enough to take your final vows, this is the only life you know. You don't really have a choice anymore. The ceremony where you become a nun is designed to hammer home what you're giving up. You're dressed as a bride, complete with wedding dress and flowers, because you're marrying Christ. Then they cut off your hair, all of it, right there in front of everyone. Your hair, which in medieval culture was a woman's glory and beauty, gets shorn off like you're a sheep. They replace your wedding dress with a rough wool habit that's uncomfortable and itchy. They put a veil over your head that you'll wear for the rest of your life. You take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. You promise to give up everything, own nothing, never experience sexual or romantic love, and obey your superiors without question until you die. And then you're locked in. The convent doors close behind you, and you're not leaving except maybe for the most essential business. Always chaperoned, always watched. Every hour of every day is scheduled. You wake up in the middle of the night for prayers, matins at midnight or 2 a.m., depending on the convent. You're stumbling out of your tiny cell, still half asleep, to go pray in a freezing, cold chapel for an hour or more. Then back to bed for a few hours, then up again at dawn for lauds, then prime, then terce, then sext, then nun, then vespers, then compline. 8 prayer services a day, every single day for the rest of your life. Your entire existence revolves around the prayer schedule. Between prayers, you work. Convents weren't just spiritual retreats. They were economic units that had to support themselves. You might be copying manuscripts, tedious detailed work that ruins your eyesight. You might be doing embroidery or weaving, creating elaborate textiles that the convent sells. You might be working in the garden, growing food. You might be in the kitchen, cooking meals for dozens or hundreds of other nuns. The work is hard and the conditions are harsh. Medieval buildings are cold. Stone walls, drafty rooms, minimal heating. In winter, you're freezing constantly. Your hands are numb, your feet are numb. You're wearing layers of wool that don't really keep you warm. You're just expected to endure it as part of your sacrifice to God. The food is terrible. Convents follow strict fasting rules. No meat most of the time. Lots of bread, porridge, vegetables if you're lucky. Fish on special occasions. The portions are small because gluttony is a sin, and nuns are supposed to practice self-denial. You're hungry a lot. You're malnourished. You develop deficiencies that cause health problems nobody understands how to treat. When you get sick, medical care is primitive at best. Nuns treat each other using medieval medicine, which means bloodletting, herbal remedies that may or may not work, and prayer. Lots of prayers. If you have a serious illness, you're probably going to die from it. If you have chronic pain, you're going to live with it forever because there's no real treatment. Women's health issues are especially miserable. You're still getting your period, but you're dealing with it using rags that you have to wash and reuse. You might have endometriosis or fibroids or other painful conditions, and there's nothing anyone can do. You're just supposed to offer up your suffering to God. And here's something nobody talks about. The vow of chastity doesn't stop you from having sexual feelings. You're a human being with a human body and human desires, but you're not allowed to act on them ever. Not even by yourself. Masturbation is a sin. Sexual thoughts are sins you have to confess. You're supposed to suppress and deny a fundamental part of being human and feel guilty about it when you can't. Some nuns struggled with this terribly. The frustration, the shame, the constant battle against your own body. Some broke their vows in secret, having affairs with priests or other nuns, or people from outside the convent. If you were caught, the punishment was severe. Public humiliation, harsh penance, possibly being locked in a cell on bread and water for weeks. Or worse, being declared a heretic and handed over to secular authorities. The power structure inside the convent is its own nightmare. The abbess runs everything, and her word is law. If she's kind and fair, you might have a tolerable life. If she's cruel or petty or plays favorites, your life is hell. And you can't escape her. You can't quit. You can't transfer to another convent without her permission, which she won't give. You're stuck. The isolation is crushing. You're cut off from the outside world almost completely. Letters from family are read by the abbess before you get them. Visits are rare and supervised. You don't know what's happening in the world beyond the convent walls. You're living in this tiny enclosed space with the same people for decades, and you can't leave. And you can't have real friendships, not really. Particular friendships, meaning close bonds between two nuns, were discouraged or outright forbidden because they were seen as distracting from your devotion to God. You're supposed to love everyone equally and no one specifically. So you're surrounded by people but deeply lonely. Some nuns went mad. The isolation, the repression, the endless repetition of the same prayers and the same work and the same joyless routine broke their minds. They had visions that might have been religious experiences or might have been psychotic breaks. They heard voices, they saw demons, and everyone interpreted this as either holiness or possession, never as mental illness caused by an intolerable living situation. If you were deemed possessed, the treatment was exorcism. Priests shouting prayers at you, throwing holy water on you, maybe beating you to drive out the demons. If you were deemed holy, you might become famous, but that came with its own pressures. Either way, you're not okay and nobody's actually helping you. The years stretch on. You're 30, 40, 50, 60. You've spent decades in this place. Your health is failing. Your body is worn out from hard work and poor diet and harsh conditions. You've lost teeth, your bones ache, your eyesight is going, and you're still waking up for midnight prayers, still doing your assigned work, still following the same schedule you followed for 40 years. There's no retirement for nuns. You work until you physically can't anymore. Then you're cared for by younger nuns if the convent has the resources, or you're basically left to suffer if it doesn't. You die in the same convent where you spent your entire adult life. They bury you in the convent cemetery with a simple marker. And what did you get for it? The promise of heaven, maybe. The satisfaction of having served God if you believe strongly enough to find satisfaction in that. But you gave up everything. Choice, freedom, love, family, pleasure, autonomy. You lived a life of poverty and obedience and denial. You never got to make your own decisions. You never got to find out who you might have been if you just had the choice. Being a nun in medieval times meant trading one form of control for another. Instead of a husband, you had abbesses and bishops and priests telling you what to do. Instead of bearing children for a man, you devoted your fertility and your youth to the church. You thought you were escaping the hardships of medieval marriage, but you just ended up in a different kind of prison. Actually, you know what? There's no silver lining here. You spent your entire life locked in a building, following rules you didn't choose, suppressing every natural human desire, working yourself to exhaustion, and dying surrounded by women who couldn't even be your real friends, because the church said closeness was a sin. You traded your whole existence for the promise of heaven and the certainty of a life you never got to live. Some nuns found genuine peace in their faith. Some truly believed the sacrifice was worth it. But most probably died wondering what might have been if they just had the choice.